Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, so I'm just gonna test the mic. Hi guys, I've been away for a very long time, but finally we're back and I'm excited to be back because today I'm going to be talking about Avatar: The Way of Water. Because I tend to talk a lot on these live streams, I don't know whether that's a good thing or bad thing, depends how you guys feel about it, but I've got some tea with me. It's chai tea. So, first thing I sort of just wanted to touch on with Avatar: The Way of Water is that I really enjoyed the movie. I've seen a lot of mixed responses about the movie, but overwhelmingly, the feedback has been largely positive. Movies in the 2020s and onwards have gotten a really bad rep, um, and not for no reason. They haven't been great. So, for this movie to sort of get a mixed response, and for the most part, people finding something to like about the movie was great and very encouraging. So, I can firmly say that I'm one of the people in the camp who liked the movie and who really enjoyed it. I went to see it at Everyman Cinema in Canary Wharf, where I usually go, and I really enjoyed the experience. Um, the visuals were great enough to capture a lot of the kids who were in the audience. So there wasn't actually too much crying, and that was really great because I'm not going to say there's nothing worse than a crying child because personally, I'm one of those people that doesn't really have an issue with crying kids. I know some people hate crying children and they can't stand it, but I actually don't mind that much. I mean, if you're on a plane and then there are crying babies, I'm not the person to start complaining or start like getting agitated. It's a baby. That's the only way they're going to communicate. But I think when it comes to movies and you're trying to concentrate, it can be slightly more bothersome. But it was so captivating in terms of visuals that the kids weren't crying, and there were a lot of kids in the audience. So that was all great, and it was really pretty to look at. Hi, Cal. Cal's in the comment section. He says, weak plot, stunning visuals, especially in 3D. I admittedly kind of regret not seeing the first film in 3D. Okay, so let's just briefly touch on Avatar 1 because am I the only one who thinks that is kind of like forgettable? Avatar 1 wasn't like memorable in my mind because Avatar, the first movie, suffered from a weak plot as well. It didn't really have the strongest plot, but it was one that has sort of been reused over and over again. So we were familiar with the plot, and so going to a strange land or an alien land, humans looking for resources. They find these strange people, get integrate with them, and join their side because the aliens are sort of morally right in the whole situation. And the problem with that plot is that it's not a very nuanced conversation because if humans are leaving their planet to go to a different planet to look for resources, obviously the situation here on Earth is a bit dire. So it's not a very nuanced conversation to just simply paint the humans as like the bad people and not understand why it's a necessity and why the effort to go to a different planet um and deplete it of its resources. There has to obviously be a situation on Earth that requires it. Let's take our global warming situation, for example. It requires a you have people sending like rockets into space and things like that to find resources. I'm not gonna name any names, but I think we all know who I'm talking about. And all of these things are happening because the resources here on Earth seem to be like running out in a sense. So if people are going into space to look for resources, it's more nuanced to try and maybe give us some insight into why they're spending this large amount of money and resources and everything to search for natural materials to use on Earth. So again, the first movie had its weaknesses in terms of like a weak plot. The characters were not as memorable as individuals. I think Natiri was a favorite from the first movie just because she definitely stood out. Um, and so she was sort of a favorite in the first movie. She had more character development, I believe, in the first movie. Jake Sully, likable, but not extraordinary. Not something I didn't really like remember him a lot in the first movie. I think the character who really was stuck out, and not by much, because again, she was playing the whole kind of like Pocahontas role. But the character who I think shone the most is definitely going to be Natiri. She was just likable, and everything like that. But this second movie, okay, plot wise, still had the same problems. It was still a little bit weak. However, characterization, beautiful, beautiful characterization of the main characters. Okay, so I'm going to get into the sort of nuances of the movie because certain side characters were just underdeveloped, and I think for some that was acceptable. For example, like the chief of the water, I'm going to call them the water tribe. I know that's slightly offensive to people who love the last airbender. I'm one of them, but let's just say the water tribe. But the chief of the tribe that Jake Sully and his kids seek refuge in, he is not a very developed character. He's sort of, I wouldn't say one dimensional. He's not like a cardboard cutout in the background, but he isn't a fully fleshed out character. And so, but I think that's acceptable. We don't need his whole backstory. We don't need to know his motivations and everything about him. He's not the main focus. He's there to almost serve as part of the structure of the tribe. We know that Navi tribes have a chief. So we needed a chieftain. We needed a chieftain that was strong and could make decisive decisions and give us that sort of structure. We needed another male character for Jake to sort of bounce off on, and the chief served his purpose there. His wife, interesting character as well. It's a very strong woman. Very strong sort of character as well. Her place, especially when she has to perform like the healing ritual on Kiri, is was very kind of interesting to watch, and I think it just deepened her character. It showed us more about her role in the society. So that was definitely a nice touch. Again, we don't learn like everything about her, but I do think that she's very fleshed out, and she's fleshed out as much as she has to be. Um, but when it comes to the Sully family, that was the real strength of the second movie because, like I said, plot wise, the movie isn't brilliant. I mean, the whole whaling plot, that didn't really make sense to me because I could understand if the whaling issue was to get a fuel like substance. So if they were hunting the Talcon, which is what they call their whales, but if they were hunting the Talcon to get, say, for example, something like an alternative to petrol that was so much more effective than petrol and made space travel 10 times easier, I would understand that that would be a more nuanced use. But to hunt the Talcon just because they, you know, their essence or whatever that yellow thing that they were being extracted for, to hunt them just because it makes humans stop aging. I don't know whether that has enough value that you would dedicate so much money to sending people into space, into enemy territory, mind you, because at this point the context of this whole situation is that the hi double A. But the context of this whole situation is that the Na'vi have sent humans back to Earth. they've conquered them and sent them back to Earth. They fought a battle at the end of the first movie, and the Na'vi have come out victorious. So the humans return to Earth defeated. So Pandora isn't like a neutral territory where humans sort of came and were treated like equals. It was always a hostile territory. And whether I don't know whether allowing people to go whaling for a commercial resource is reason enough to send people into hostile territories. Because it's one thing to hunt the tycoon for like a petrol source or an energy source, but to hunt them because you just don't want to get old is a bit, it doesn't make financial sense. Can't speak, but remember that the other humans that we have seen occupying Pandora are researchers and military personnel. So the only people that we've seen so far are the military and the people researching to help the military fulfill their tasks. And so um in that case, it's like, well, why would there suddenly be a commercial whaler in addition to scientists and military personnel? And these are independent whalers. They're not whalers for the military. They're not whalers for the state. They are independent businessmen, so to speak. So that was a weakness of the plot that didn't really make sense to me, because it's not the same as Earth. Because obviously when new territories are occupied, let's say for example a particular area of the Caribbean um, has been discovered, even though I'm pretty sure you can't discover places that people have already lived, but let's just use the word discover. um I understand that on Earth, a territory that we are familiar with and a territory that has largely been explored, commercial um I say people will go in there for commercial value that doesn't have to do necessarily with like resources. So that storyline of whalers being in the ocean and hunting the Talcon would make sense on Earth, because that's a territory we largely know a lot about. However, Pandora is a different planet, meaning there's space travel involved. So the expense of having to hunt the Talcon becomes so much more than anything on Earth. How would these people even get the resources to explore what financial benefit could be gained on Pandora, when remember it's a hostile territory, so you can't exactly just stroll in there and do all the research that you want. So some things just didn't make sense logically in terms of that whaling plot. So yeah, and those are like some of the things that were just a bit weak about the plot. But where this second movie really shines is in its characterization, especially of the Sully family. We do get a more fleshed out villain as well, because he tends to be more calculative in this movie than he was in the first. In the first, he was just sort of all out violence, but in this movie, he's more manipulative. He has conflicting feelings. At times, we feel sorry for him, but we never like sympathize with his goals. Like we still know that this is clearly the villain. We don't like him, but we sympathize with him a little bit because he has the son who he never really got to bond with, and now he's trying to bond with him while they kill people. So it's complicated, and that it makes a more nuanced character without actually turning him into like a sympathetic villain, which I liked. So let me pause to look at the chat because there's a lot going on. So Callum says James Cameron loves water. I remember playing the licensed video game on the Nintendo Wii. There's going to be another video game on this franchise coming out. Um, that's interesting. I can't lie. When it comes to video games, I'm not your girl. I do not play video games. I think I had a Nintendo Wii when I was like what, 11, and I think it was Wii Sports, and that was the end of it. I think the only sort of game console I've had was a DS and a Tamagotchi. So that was it. So when it comes to gaming, yeah, I'm a straight novice. I don't really know that much, and to quite frank, I'm not really that interested. But if I do like sometimes the storylines of stories of video games. For example, I sometimes watch clips about the League of Legends just because the characters look interesting. Um, for a video that I was going to put on up on YouTube, I watched the entire like storyline of the Shadow of War game. So that's pretty much my experience with video games. I think I had to watch a Harry Potter gameplay once. Can't remember when, but I do distinctly remember watching it and being puzzled by the sheer amount of passion the player was displaying. But okay, going back to the comments. Callum says Princess Monaco did this message 10 times better. Our brother Pilgrim's Purse covered this. Probably will watch that. I've again never watched that movie. I just don't have the time, but I will make time to watch these things because even shows and movies that I really have wanted to watch for a long time have sort of just taken the back seat to everything else that I'm doing. And I think it would be beneficial for me to take some time to actually sit down and watch certain movies and actually catch up on certain series that I have just sort of discarded in favor of work. Yeah. The whaling subplot went nowhere. Also, fun fact, Weaver portrayed the teenage daughter who can control nature. That's an impressive acting range. I know. I was watching the casting, and that was incredible. I was that Weaver's performance shocked me. I mean, I would have never guessed that it was her behind Kiri because I don't want to be ageist, but wow, that's a very incredible performance, and I loved it all the more because of that. So Double A says James Cameron's best movie is Titanic. I mean, Titanic was. I need to go back and watch Titanic. The thing is, I'm a massive tomboy. So when I watched Titanic for the first time, all I had were questions about their relationship because I didn't really understand why they began that relationship in the first place. I kept asking why can't they just be friends? And then the scene that everyone talks about, the fact that that door was definitely big enough for two people, and she sort of just let him die. And I thought that was just an awful decision to make because if you clearly love this guy enough to, go against your parents and everything else, then at least try and save him. But try and keep him safe. Try and ensure his survival. But no, um I guess not. But Titanic visually, sort of the soundtrack, it's iconic. So I guess yeah, Titanic probably might be his best movie. I would probably need to watch it again just to see whether the plot is as captivating. Um, but yeah, so I'll agree with that one for now. First Lobster says the Way of Water is better than the original. Not great, just better. Um, yeah, I mean it is. It's better than the original. Um, is there enough to say that the movie is great? I don't know if we had to put The Way of Water next to other great movies, whether it would stand up. So I agree with you there. Um, but it did have elements that if you just had to extract those elements and put them up next to elements from other movies, it would definitely be up there. But altogether, yeah, if you take the sum of everything that The Way of Water is, its weaker parts sometimes are really weak. Dialogue, for example, which was the other thing that I wanted to talk about on this live stream. Dialogue in The Way of Water sometimes got awful. At some points, it was like we have this great sort of visuals, but they need to speak, and so let's just give them lines. And so some of the lines felt clunky and not well thought out. It was some of the dialogue was a bit cringe. Some of the dialogue was a bit it's like an undercooked meat pie. But but overall, I think I was just so engaged with their family dynamic, and I felt so much for the characters that there were things I just kind of overlooked and was like, okay, I can look past the dialogue and I can look past the sort of awkward accent at times and the fact that Loak, the second son, doesn't really have an accent, whereas Neteam has a strong accent. So I was just like, okay, it's a bit all over the place, but we can look past this. Yay. Callum says, read this carefully. I have a message. Wow. Okay. I will give this all my attention. Yo, listen up. There's a story about a little guy that lives in a blue world, and all day and all night, and everything he sees is just blue. Like him inside, blue, blue. His house is blue, with a blue little window, and a blue, and everything is blue for him and himself and everything around because he ain't got nobody to listen to. I'm blue. Okay, Callum. um, that was a very serious message. A very serious message indeed, because we needed to know that he's blue, as it wasn't evident enough. But thank you for that input. Okay. Double A says, you know Pilgrim's Pass? Wow, he's a good friend of mine. Oh wow. Okay, that is great. It's a small world. Um, do I know him personally? No. But do I know him because we've sort of interacted a little bit on YouTube? Yes. So that's actually really nice because he comes across as a really great guy and I like his videos a lot. So all the more power to him. He's definitely somebody that I watch. I'm someone that I'm subscribed to here on YouTube. So that's the extent of my knowledge of him. Okay. Lobster says, if I had made the way of water, I would have given the corporal a full redemption arc. Would I have given the corporal a full redemption arc? That's a very interesting choice. Why would you have given him a redemption arc? What about him was redeemable? Okay. Oh wow, you've known him since 2018. Double A says I've known him since 2018. We talk weekly. Wow, you guys have a close relationship then. I need to step up my game with some of my friends because during exam season, people don't hear from me. During exam season, I disappear. So I need to get better at that. Feeling slightly called out. But that's great that you talk to him on a weekly basis. It's lovely that people can form good friendships like this, especially with someone like Pilgrim's Past, because he's quite a good and sort of knowledgeable person. Double A says that's actually how I found your channel, Malika. Oh wow, you know, I remember the first day. The little story time. I remember the first day that I kind of saw Pilgrim Pilgrim's Past's shout out about my channel, and that was really stunning because he was someone I'd watched for a while. And so to have someone who I definitely admired in terms of a content creator who I believe um, sort of passes along his point with a lot of integrity, which is something that can be a bit rare to find on YouTube. So to have that shout out and was great. And I'm eternally grateful for that. But yeah, story time over. King Kai, hello, says, great to see you back. Unfortunately, I don't have time to watch this right now, and I haven't seen the new Avatar. Hope to see more from you. Um, Thank you so much for tuning in anyway, though. Thank you. I know that this was a bit sudden. I need to get better at kind of announcing when I'm just randomly going to pop back up. Thing is, YouTube doesn't treat me very well. YouTube sometimes just doesn't really allow me to post for some reason, and sometimes YouTube Studio can be a nightmare. So I just sort of like wedge myself back in anytime that I can, but I will get better at this. So thank you so much for being patient and sticking around and like showing up and even telling me about it. You didn't owe me an explanation, but giving one is just so sweet. Thank you. Hobson says, because Spider is the corporal's son. It's an avenue for redemption. Spider can show him the error of his ways or something. Okay. Um, that's definitely an interesting take. I think sons definitely do have um an avenue to show their fathers new things about life. I think children in general have that power over their parents. Um, if their parents can is for in order for Spider to have that sort of impact on the corporal, their relationship would have to really deepen. And the corporal would have to sacrifice certain things for Spider to desire to want to change him or want to help him change. Because at the end of the day, no one can make you change. You have to desire to change yourself. And so, unless the corporal desires change, then Spider is irrelevant. Spider's impact is irrelevant. It's sort of the same mentality that sometimes people have about their spouses, that you can make someone change. You can't make someone change. That person has to want to change. Otherwise, it's you're fighting an uphill battle and you're going to lose, and that's just more stress than you should want in your life. So when it comes to the corporal and his characterization, we'd have to see a significant desire in him to change, something that's in him alone that Spider can sort of act on or encourage to make him want to change. It can't be Spider just turns up and then he's like, "Oh, I have a son," and now they through them just being around each other, he starts to change over time. That's a very long game to play, and most of the time it doesn't pan out in real life. So the corporal in the corporal's own characterization would have to change it a lot. We did see some affection between Spider and the corporal in the movie, but even that wasn't enough to make him change. And then we also had the line at the end that said, "A son for a son." So even though Spider does save his father, I think that was more of just like, well, you got me out of that cage and saved me from the scientists, so I'm not going to let you die. But it wasn't I'm now on your side. And he's Spider sort of chose his alliance by coming back to the Sullys and sort of being taken in as a son. So I think future plot lines will really end up having Spider and the Corporal being pitted against each other, which I think, for me personally, is a very interesting and more interesting actually plot line than the Corporal just becoming a good guy. Because some people never change, and I think a lot of the time that's closer to reality than a character arc where the character does change. So D Movie Man, hello, says Spider was such a poorly written and acted character, it was given the great value Tarzan. Okay, let me read that properly and put this tea down before I spit out myself. Okay, Spider was such a poorly written and acted character. It was giving me great value Tarzan, beyond obnoxious, and that choice he made at the end made me want to throw something at the screen. Okay, I can't lie. That choice annoyed me too because I wanted the corporal to die. Look, some people, I'm not an advocate of violence, turn the other cheek and everything like that. But some people just need to be left to drown. Like he was already dead. Like you didn't have to do anything. Just leave him there. So Spider saving him at the end, I guess, was him sort of going, but I owe him, or feeling like he owes him, or I don't know, him just feeling like he has to pay him back in some way, and that's his dad. And they sort of had a very slim throwaway line in the beginning of him saying, "It's better not to know who your father is," because he knows his father was a jerk. So I think that choice confused me because you've also traveled with the corporal and seen him commit atrocities. But I guess maybe he processes trauma differently. In terms of being great value, Tarzan, I I agree. I agree. I kind of like Spider, but only because he's part of the Sully brood. So, and out of all of them, he was probably my least favorite character. I felt like he was a little bit irrelevant. And I feel sort of mean saying that, but he did feel like an irrelevant character. And my line with irrelevant characters is that if they don't need to be there, they can get cut. So unless he has a very significant part to play later on, other than being a translator for the corporal, then he didn't really need to be there. But hopefully he has more of a role, and um, we get to see him expand as a character. Double A says, I can tell you firsthand that he's self-motivated and always working on his channel, that's for certain. Fun fact, I was actually on Pilgrim's Past podcast, but it got deleted due to it not due to it not being PG with the language. Yeah, I mean, YouTube has its rules, and when you create content for this, they get to dictate what you can say to a certain extent. And it's great to hear about his motivation and the fact that he's very dedicated to his channel. I think it shows in how frequently he posts and the level of depth that he dives into with his channel. So that's definitely something that comes across when you watch his videos. The Movie Man says, did you watch this with the high frame rate? It honestly made me feel dizzy, and I didn't understand the choice to go back and forth between that and the regular frame rate. Very disorientating. At first, when I was watching this in the cinema, at first it was a little bit much. Like the colors, the pictures, the frame, everything was a bit much at first. But I think my eyes just got used to it, and I am actually glad that I didn't watch this in 3D. The reason why is because it was much. Um, Imagine you just getting a lot of visual information at the same time. So you're getting landscapes, you're getting flight, you're getting a lot of flora and fauna, you're getting so much imagery thrown at you, and it's very vibrant. So it becomes a lot to take in. And having that in 3D to me would have been too much. And so I had the option to watch it in 3D, but I decided to go into the 2D screening room because I just felt like it was a lot to sort of take in and a lot to go off. So I think I understand the complaint, and it's one of the weaknesses about the movie. So while I definitely enjoyed the movie and I have spoken quite highly of it already, but there were definitely weaknesses, which some of which I have addressed, dialogue being one of them, plot points that didn't quite make sense. And I guess this would be another complaint that I agree with, but it's something that my eyes got used to quite quickly. And I think the overall beauty of the visual imagery was enough to sort of pacify me. So Number one lobster says, to be fair, I would have never made the corporal such a villain to begin with, and I would have made the Neytiri less good. She would have actually wanted to kill Spider, causing Spider to stick with Corp. Why would you have made that creative choice to have the corporal not be a villain and to have Neytiri be good in a sense? I think Neytiri is the one whose characterization I'm questioning more than the corporal, because Neytiri isn't presented as this always good, always morally correct character. She is flawed and she has her prejudices. She wanted to kill Spider. So, and she's always viewed him as an outsider, which I think works really well, because going into the second movie with Jake sort of impromptu adopting the boy, it will cause tension in the third movie. So I wonder why you would make Neytiri more of a villain, or less good. Let's not put words into your mouth, but less good, and then make the corporal not a villain. I think the corporal, in my opinion, the corporal suits his role. I don't see him being a character that's redeemable. Some people are just jerks, and the corporal fits that quite well. I don't think he's redeemable in the sense, because I think there's a difference between making a character more understandable versus making them a redeemable hero. So I think the corporal can be made more understandable. Like I was saying at the beginning of the stream, if everything was more nuanced, I would be able to understand the desperation in his actions. I would be able to understand that to him the ends justify the means, that he's not just this military guy who loves killing things, but he understands the dire situation on Earth. And to him, humans, the people he loves, are more important than these foreign, strange aliens that he's doesn't really have any emotional connection with. That, I think, is a better sort of way to bring humanity to a character that can be quite two-dimensional, rather than saying, well, but the Navi aren't like great people either. That that's kind of like a finger pointing debate, rather than trying to understand that people have different motives, and we just happen to be looking at Jake's story, and Jake's the one telling it, and Jake has fallen in love with this alien woman, and so his perspective is never going to be that she's an evil person and the corporal's great. So we also have to think about who's telling the story. Jake is our narrator. Is Jake gonna look at his wife and be like, yeah, she's evil, and the corporal, this guy has a point? No, that's his wife. So no matter how much we try and sort of tweak things, you'd have to change the narrator in order to make your proposal work. Because what's the incentive for Jake to side with him, even if he is right? He's gonna side with the person who is the mother of his children. Double A says it gave me the same feeling I had when I watched The Hobbit in the cinema, with 60 frames per second. I didn't watch The Hobbit in the cinema. I watched it in the comfort of my home, not on this TV, but on the one downstairs, which is slightly bigger, and there's just better ambience in the living room. So, um, but yeah, I didn't have so much of a problem watching that in my house. But I guess if you watch it in the cinema, there's just the massive screen is just a lot more. There's just so much more to take in. Lobster says, "Yeah, I basically would have made more both movies more nuanced." Good point from you. Thanks. I think, yeah, I think the nuance of each side's perspective is probably missing a little bit. We get more of it obviously from the Navi perspective, because Jake becomes one of the Navi, but the human perspective is greatly lost. Um, Double A says, man, I gotta start a YouTube channel myself. All my friends have got one. Go ahead. I mean, the more the merrier. At the end of the day, YouTube is just this vast platform, and a variety of voices is kind of why we get onto YouTube, just having something to say. And it would be great to see what you have to sort of just say on YouTube and things that you're interested in. So I definitely would encourage you to get a YouTube channel. It has its challenges, as does everything in life, but and it can be very time consuming. But I think that if you have something that you're passionate about, then YouTube is just something that you can do, and it depends how you want to take it. And some people just say, well, let's see how it goes. And I think anyone who has something that they feel passionately about can get on YouTube. Obviously, if you feel passionate about things that YouTube is vehemently against, it might be a bit harder for you to get on YouTube and have a long stay on YouTube. But then again, if you just have things that you want to say and you have people that you want to talk to, YouTube is great. I mean, I'm talking to all of you guys, and my evening has been fun so far. So, yeah. Okay. So, I wanted to move on to probably my favorite part of the Way of Water. And this is the main reason why I like the movie. Visually, it's pretty, but you have a lot of movies that are visually impressive that aren't great. And so I think when it comes to The Way of Water, the family dynamic is definitely what sells the movie for a lot of people. And it definitely sold the movie for me. And before I move on, I'm gonna answer that question. Double A. Double A says, "How did you get away with titling the video witches and sex?" Um, well, it depends what you mean get away with it, because after I made that video, I couldn't post for months. So it depends what you view as getting away with it. If getting away with it means the video wasn't taken down, then yeah, I guess I got away with it. But if getting away with it means the video wasn't taken down and I wasn't sort of banned from YouTube for a bit, then no, I didn't really get away with it because I was gone for so long because I couldn't post anything. So I didn't exactly get away with it, but it's still up there and I can live stream. So I don't know, maybe I got away with it in the long run. But I think I don't know. Behind every system are people. And maybe they watched the video or um s- put it through a system and it didn't pick up certain buzzwords and it didn't pick up certain triggers that would be associated with ideology or sentiments that are negative or hateful. And I think that's why at first I may have been shadow banned or whatever, but eventually they saw nothing wrong with it. Because it's not like I'm saying, oh, women are just hateful creatures that want to suck your soul out. No. I that was not really the message of the video. So it wasn't egregious or sort of inflammatory in that sense. I think that's why I got away with it, so to speak. So moving on to something that may be inflammatory. I don't know whether this will be. I don't think it will, because just talking about concepts of masculinity and femininity are things I've been doing for a while on this channel. And I think the impressive part of Avatar was actually the response for me, because after I watched the movie, I definitely felt um, connected to the Sully family. And that was one thing that I was impressed by, because I watched The Way of Water, and the last movie that I went to the cinema to watch was Black Panther. So I the second one, not the first one, the second Black Panther movie. And I went to watch the second Black Panther movie with friends. And so I immediately got their response as I was watching it and after, when we sort of congregated to discuss what we had watched. So I got their immediate response, and I realized, having watched Avatar, The Way of Water, as I was thinking back to my last cinema experience, I realized that what made Black Panther a sort of emotional movie was not the movie itself, but the context of the movie. It's that um the actor who plays T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, was actually dead in real life. And so we were grieving as we watched the movie. And the scenes that were really heartfelt all had to do with him. So it was the real life context that made the movie emotional. Like, uh, Angela Bassett's speech was powerful, but it was even more powerful because the actor's dead. The scenes with Shuri overcoming grief are powerful, but they're only really powerful because the actor is dead. And so everything about the movie becomes really hyper emotional because the character's dead. We were floored by the reveal that T'Challa has a son because the actor's dead. So everything was really made hyper emotional because of the real world context. Whereas with Avatar: The Way of Water, there's no real world context to make this movie emotional. I mean, the first one came out ages ago, like in 2009, when I was 9 years old. So it's an old movie. And so there was nothing about the real world that made anyone want to emotionally connect with this movie. So it had to rely on its own internal story and its own internal dynamics in order to make people have an emotional connection. And while it failed in certain aspects of the plot and certain aspects of the dialogue, and some of the frames were just much, but where it was an outstanding pass is in its family dynamic. And what we got was a family against the world. And we had a strong father figure and a strong mother figure and children who were protected and cared for. And we saw a family that was really a fortress. Like, they kept saying family is our fortress. And what we were seeing on stage was a family that was a fortress. This how family should be. And so I was really encouraged by that dynamic, because what we have seen in Hollywood is fathers being useless. I mean, just because you work and you bring money home doesn't make you a dad. Like, I have a great relationship with my dad because even though he works 7 days a week and is out of the house most of the time, when he comes home, he still has time for my useless debates. So, and that's what makes our relationship what it is like, I can to this day, going to be 23 years old. I can still come to my dad and be like, look what I did today, and he will be bone tired, but he'll still listen. And it's not listening like, yeah, that's great. Yeah. He'll be like, okay, but what about this? And show me this again. I didn't really see this. I'm tired. So show me again. Come sit here. Let me see. You don't understand what that does. So I loved how proactive Jake was as a dad, because I was like, this is what my dad is like. And I saw how a healthy and good patriarch is supposed to operate. And we haven't seen that for a long time in movies. And so, I mean, I was recently watching The House of Dragon, and Viserys is not the best patriarch. He has his good sides, but for the most part, he buries his head under the sand. Jake does not do that. If there's a problem, Jake is addressing it. If there's a problem, he's tackling it. All the problems that he isn't able to tackle is something that is like out of his control, and there are greater powers working. And also sometimes the kids are just growing up, and it's not everything you'll be able to solve. Some things they have to solve by themselves, which is where the sibling rivalry comes in. But he was so proactive, and I loved to see that. I loved to see a healthy dad, like not just parent, not just father because you were part of the baby making process, but dad. But dad is here. And I loved seeing that on screen because it was such a good example of what a father is supposed to be. So let's just quickly go to the comments so I don't just like have a backlog of comments to read. Mhm. So Lobster says, I just realized in the Avatar universe, the Earth is literally dying. Humans need Pandora, else they won't survive. So much room for nuance, and yet all we get is humans bad. That's true. I mean, we don't get the human perspective. And to some extent, that is sort of the fault of the protagonist. He is not very nuanced in his thinking. Jake, we have to think about how our narrator is characterized to properly understand why that may be an issue. I do think it's something that the writers could have rectified. I don't think that even though a character is sort of immature and needs to grow, it doesn't mean that they are completely oblivious to the human situation. Jake at the beginning of the first Avatar movie is a judgmental, wild child, like broken, sort of embittered, grieving jock of a person. So he's not like an intellectual who can see both sides. He's not that sort of person. But as he grows, we should have gotten more nuance, especially since there were other characters whose perspective could have influenced Jake's. For example, Weaver's character in the first movie, Grace, could have influenced how Jake saw the whole dynamic. But that wasn't put into place. And so that's a writing problem. But then again, these are the problems sometimes with modern movies that nuance can be difficult for them to write. Lobster says, very true. If nothing else, the way of water must be praised for promoting wholesome family values. Yeah, that is probably my favorite part of the entire movie. And like I was saying with the whole Black Panther and um, Way of Water comparison, it's not that the movies have anything to do with each other. It's just that for one movie, we had to rely on the social context in order to feel a powerful emotional connection that left people crying in the cinemas. It's not because the movie was just groundbreaking and it was just everything. No, it's because we had a real world context of Chadwick Boseman dying, and so we felt the emotion of losing such a good person and a great actor. So that influenced how we viewed the movie, and it influenced our responses, and it influenced the bits of the movie that we loved the most, because the parts of the movie that had nothing to do with him were a bit lackluster and were not powerful and tight. But the the parts of the movie that had to do with Chadwick Boseman were very powerful and had such a strong effect on the audience. So in The Way of Water, there's no context of that sort. Like, we don't have an actor dying. We don't have a loss that was so great that it influenced how we viewed this movie. What we had was a family, and we identified with that family. We saw their flaws, we saw their strengths, we saw that they were alone, we rooted for them, we formed an emotional connection within the runtime of the movie with this family. And so when, spoiler alert, so just cover your ears or whatever you want to do, it's not to hear this part. But when Nateum dies, oh my, that hit me. When Natea dies, it's emotional because it's almost like we're losing someone we love too. And it's not because the movie was so well written. It's not because the movie was just an artistic masterpiece. It's because we just formed an emotional connection. I've told this story before, but I remember when I was tutoring a child, and I was reading Harry Potter to her, the first book. I had read Harry Potter so many times. I think I've read the first book 16 times. So I was sort of over the whole Harry Potter. I was so used to it. I'd forgotten why I liked Harry Potter in the first place. And so I saw her reaction to the first book, and we were only 3 chapters in, and this girl was just rooting for Harry, just pouring her heart out for this character. And I asked her, so okay, because at that I was, sometimes when you've read something so many times, you sort of lose the essence of it. So I asked her, okay, why do you like Harry so much? What is it about him that you love so much? Because as an adult, I can look at Harry Potter and see the things that aren't brilliant. A child is not going to easily identify that, her use of J.K. Rowling's use of adjectives is excessive. Like they're not going to look at that and see all of these things that as an adult and as an avid reader, because you've had a lot of things to read as well in between when you were a child and coming back to Harry Potter, you can see. But she didn't have the my eyes. And so what she said is she was rooting for him because he was in a bad situation. This was a character who was innocent, who didn't deserve these bad things that were happening to him. And he was thrown into this really horrible situation. And she felt sorry for him. And she was rooting for him because he didn't deserve it. And so the character that dies in The Way of Water is Mateum, the good brother, the older brother who just wants to protect his siblings. And as the eldest child, oh, I identified. So um you just saw someone who cared, who was always there to protect his siblings, who was always there to correct them, who never let them go into danger alone, who knew that they were the most annoying siblings he could have ever been cursed with, but he still loved them anyway. And he's the one that dies. And so our hearts just poured out for Nateum because he didn't deserve to die. And his last words, I just want to go home. And that was, I heard sobs in the background. I was like holding myself as well. So yeah, it was such an emotional experience, but they didn't have a context to lean back on. They had to do that within the 3 hour running time, and they achieved that emotional connection. And that is a big reason why it has the positive reviews that it's gotten. Not because the storyline was amazing, but because they managed to give us that emotional connection that we were looking for. And it's through the mode of family. So it was very interesting to see the response to that. And one of the things that I noticed as I was sort of looking through the reviews is that Jake Sully's popularity skyrocketed. Like people had a weird thing for the Navi aesthetic before, but it's nothing like now. I think just seeing that positive masculine role model actually protecting his family, doing all the things that in some circles are actually bashed, but being that positive male role model and being that strong male figure, it actually made him more attractive. I remember having a discussion. I'm doing so many story times today, but I remember having this discussion with my friends, and we were watching the first Purge movie. I think it's the first, yeah, it's the first Purge movie, I think, that we were watching. It's the one with the family and the boyfriend that gets shot. So we're watching the Purge movie, and the wife and the husband in that movie clearly have sort of fallen out of love with each other. The spark just isn't there anymore. And then this black guy is saved by Charlie, their child. I will never forget that child's name because why did he open the door on the night of Purge? I've I wanted to throw him off the balcony. So I would never forget his name because I think I said his name so many times in anger watching the movie. And I think all of my friends were saying that we were going to throw him off the balcony or just going to ship him to Abu Dhabi. Like we were going to do awful things to Charlie as punishment for opening that door and letting this guy in and causing his dad to die. But to make this story time a little bit shorter, when when the black guy's in the house and the purgers come and say bring him out, they have to go around the house and find him. They find him, they tie him up. The wife so now begins to sort of backtrack. She doesn't really want to go through with this because they know that the purgers will kill him. And the husband is saying, no, I have to protect my family. Similar to Jake Sully, I have to protect my family. We have to just do this thing and get him out of the house and we'll deal with the repercussions afterwards. And the whole family turns against him. His daughter looks at him in a way that I don't think any parent wants their child to look at them. It's almost like you've fallen so low in esteem that your wife doesn't respect you, your children don't respect you, they see you as a monster. And we all sort of recognize that that's the look that his family was giving him. It was so recognizable. And it's not because we've ever given our parents that look. I mean, you'd die if you did, but it's not because we've ever given our parents that look. But we just saw the coldness in the family dynamic. And bear in mind, this is a family that isn't very integrated very well. In the Purge movie, they are estranged from each other, but it was almost a breaking point that their father was willing to kill somebody in order to protect a family that wasn't really even a family anymore. But we saw a switch. And this there was such a switch when the dad said, no, actually, we're not going to give this man up. We're going to fight. And he sort of rolls up his sleeves and becomes almost like a masculine man again. And his wife gives him a look like she's looking up to him, that she sees him and respects him because he's willing to fight for an ideal. And that was so wasn't like profound to us, but it was very it made me think because the moment, even though the father dies at the end as a consequence of this, so he sacrifices himself for his family by sacrificing his life, but his family's opinion of him changes drastically after he makes the decision to fight for what is right. And it's not that it guarantees the safety of his family, even because handing over the man would have guaranteed the safety of his family, but him sort of stepping in his masculinity and fighting for what is right, regardless of the consequences, we saw his family get behind him. And that was such a sort of profound moment for me watching that and then thinking about some of the messages that I've said on my channel and looking at that, how in that brief moment his masculinity sort of returned and he was looked at as this figure that could be respected by his family, which whereas before for the vast majority of the movie we had seen him as sort of a uptight general uninvolved father. So let me just go back to the comments. Callum says, I myself have admittedly grown out of Harry Potter. I think um the moment you enter like you as you're approaching your mid-20s, yeah, I don't Harry Potter becomes something that you're like, it's fun as a memory, not so much to like go back into and start being an avid fan of. So Callum says, if only Hollywood endorsed family values more often. By Malika's description, maybe this film can be a formula on how to write a family, not a masterclass, a formula. I agree. It's not a masterclass. Like I said, the film has its flaws and faults and everything, but it definitely got that dynamic right. And I'm going to go more into it because, my live streams are never just an hour, they're like 3 or 2.5. Okay. Double A, have you listened to the audio commentaries of the Lord of the Rings films? I don't think I have. I've heard I've heard some like behind the scenes commentaries. Um but more of as clips. I've never like sat down and listened to them the whole way through. Um but I should probably make time for that because I do want to make more Lord of the Rings content. So I need to just get back on the ball with reading and in reading for pleasure, reading for this channel, and reading to make content rather than just reading to sort of keep up the habit. Dee asks, hi Dee asks, Avatar does this thing a lot of sci-fi does. I hate when alien relations are made into an analogy for race. Racism is bad because it acts like different races aren't human, but aliens aren't human. That's true. If we ever came across aliens in the real world, they would be like xenophobes for all we know. Okay, another story time. But I get what you're saying because I remember I was in a lecture in uni, and in lectures they're not like seminars. You're not always supposed to contribute, but sometimes depending on how your lecturer is, they let you sort of butt in. And I sort of just made the point that we treat a lot of science fiction or outer space fantasy the same way that we sort of project our fears or our imaginations onto space, and that was what people in Europe did to different areas of the globe, because to them that was alien. So we do the same thing now, but because it's space we just go, well, you know they're not humans, but we don't really know. I'm Christian, so I have my view on the world, but let's for a second imagine that there is another Earth. Just because they're not from our Earth, would they not be human? If there was like a replica Earth, what would we define as an alien? Is it like blue eyes? That's so rude. But if what would we define as an alien? Is it blue skin? I meant to say. Um, is it like people who just look strange, or things that aren't people, maybe animalistic stuff that we would say, okay, is that's an alien because it isn't what we recognize as human. So it's very interesting. This is an interesting debate about how we use aliens to symbolize a race. And I think part of the reason why we do this is because humans tend to project a lot. It's like when we Didi says yes, as blue eyes are indeed aliens, I can confirm. I meant blue skin, but yeah, the blue, the blue-eyed people of this world. mm. Aditi says, now I agree there's an interesting question to that, but I rarely see fiction really go into it. Playing the Mass Effect trilogy right now, same critique there is to an extent. Yeah, I think it's something that, and Callum says, I'm an alien, I have blue eyes. Yeah, Cal, you're an alien. um, I think there is definitely a debate to be had there with how we view aliens, and I think for the most part we just do a lot of projection. It's like if it doesn't look like me, um, then it's strange and it can be demonized and it can be treated with suspicion. And I think what movies try and do sometimes when it feels like they're looking at race, I think what they attack more is that inherent feeling of other is bad, which is something that, evolutionarily is not the worst thing, because if we see something that doesn't resemble what we know to be like us, then naturally you're going to treat it with suspicion. But I think sometimes what these movies are trying to do is say that that inherent urge is a bad thing, and that as humans we should have moved past that, because we're now looking at we shouldn't look at things that aren't like us or what we perceive to be not like us as inherently bad. So maybe that's what they're doing, but sometimes I do admit that it is a little bit on the nose, especially when they have to give these aliens humanoid cultures. For example, the Nitiri's people are heavily influenced by a lot of South African tribes. For example, the neck piece that her mother wears is actually an African part of an African dress. So it's when they have to mix certain things in the way of water, for example, I'm so sorry, but the water Navi are so heavily influenced by Maori and like Samoan and Tongan people. The face tattoos, the tattoos on the chin, even sometimes aspects of their way of life is just so influenced by human cultures. So I guess in that case, your argument makes a lot more sense because they are definitely sort of standing in for a particular race. I know that it's difficult to create a completely new culture that has nothing to do with human cultures, but the second movie, especially with the tattoos and the design of the tattoos, it felt so on the nose. But these are like small complaints that I could pick out. Okay. Oh, okay. I have to go back because a lot of comments have been made. Mm. Helen says, I'll have to listen to those commentaries. I've seen the extended edition so many times. Double A says Ian McKellen and John Rhys Davies are standouts on the commentary. And are you a fan of Doctor Who? When I was young, yes, back in the very old days. Um, yeah, when I was kind of young and seeing it on CVBC, I was a fan of it. And I think it was Sarah Jane something. Then there was the Spartacle Mysteries. I don't know if anyone remembers that. It felt like it was a moment or movement for a bit, and then it just disappeared. But the Spartacle Mysteries, Doctor Who, all those sort of like aliens versus wizards, all of those like sci-fi kind of or slight magical series and movies definitely had my attention. I think the series that captured me as a child was Grisly Tales for Gruesome Kids. I would come home and every evening sit in front of the TV so close that it was probably awful for my eyes, but I would sit in front of the TV and watch Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids. I loved that show. And looking back now, it was so disturbing, but I loved it. Okay. Callum says not xenophobes, xenomorphs. The monster Weaver fought was giving birth to a blue girl. Okay. DD says check out C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy if you haven't. Um Callum says I've yet to read C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy. I love the man's writing. Yep, Narnia is a staple. In the little shelf, you guys can't see much of this room, but I actually filmed a video showcasing this room. It's my room, but showcasing this room. And there's a massive bookshelf around the TV. I think you can see like some of the books down here. Not really, but yeah, down there. But like one of my flower pots just fell. We're gonna ignore that. But there's a massive bookshelf, and over there on this one are my C.S. Lewis books. But yeah, we're gonna act like the last minute and a half didn't happen. So Didi says, to be fair, alien did once mean just foreigner. It's mostly used for non-Earth life now. That's true. I remember the first time I heard alien being used for a human, and that was when I went to Maryland in America. That definitely confused me because I thought I was human. and to be called an alien, I was like, "What's happening?" Bear in mind, I was still in my single digit age, so I was quite young and very confused. Didi says, "You thought you were human?" I mean, you never know what I am. But, for the most part, we'll say I'm human because if the men find out that we aren't, they'll tell the church. Okay. Callum says, I have blue eyes. I must be treated with suspicion. Exactly. Didi says, well, look, if Cthulhu shows up on my doorstep, I'd be wary, I admit. I would be confused if you were weary if Cthulhu showed up at your doorstep. Because surely, if Cthulhu was anywhere near your doorstep, you'd already be raving mad from the radiation coming off him, according to the Lovecraftian tales. So if you were just cautious, I'd be wary of you. Delia says, I've seen fantasy make non-human cultures feel more alien than a lot of sci-fi. The Dark Elves in Maryland are one of my favorites. Um, I actually Morrowind. I don't know why I said Morroland. Um, Callum says, fun fact: Amy Pond's actress comes from the town I live in, Inverness. I've been to Eden Court Theatre. I remember Grizzly Tales for some kids. Oh my gosh, that's actually so awesome! Wow, you've actually been to the theatre. People just live such interesting lives. I mean, Scotland has always been a place I wanted to visit. It's literally like how many a few hours via train from me, but just need a compelling reason enough to justify the sheer amount of time I'd need to dedicate to such a trip. So I'd need to plan it properly. I can't just do like a spontaneous, hey, I'm in Scotland sort of trip. Mm, 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 mm. So Didi says, I played Bloodborne, got a lot of sedatives at hand. Cthulhu has got nothing on the brain of Memphis. Oh my god. You know what? I'd actually pay to see that battle. I'd actually pay to see that. I would pay to see that through a telescope far away enough that I don't get affected. But I just want to see you fighting like a giant squid like deity that drives anything in a 50-mile radius crazy. I want to see you take that on. And I would pay to see that. And I want to know when you've organized that. Just tell me. Just let me know. I've laughed a lot in this podcast and actually been quite chaotic. So let's um let's get back on track. But DJ says I did in Bloodborne. It took a lot of tries, as I can imagine. I imagine it's not easy to defeat a deity. But I've spoken about Jake's popularity soaring after that, and I think it's a positive thing because it shows that there is sort of a desire for positive masculine influence. It's not that masculinity is just completely demonized, but there is a desire to see men sort of stepping up and taking on proactive roles. Um, Albeit the conversation is around masculinity is quite messy, but I do think that this movie and the reception of Jake has shown that there is room for positive response to masculinity. There is room for men to take charge. And I think the alternative is men sort of just deserting society, is just, I guess, going their own way in a sense, which sounds like a great idea. It always sounds like a great idea to run away from the problem, but the problem tends to follow you around, and that's one of the things that this movie touches on, is that Jake was sort of running away to protect his family, but the problem doesn't just disappear because you bury your head in the sand. Because once you disengage from society, let's say, what you end up doing is sort of being isolated, and humans are not created to be isolated beings, which is why in a lot of stories, the characters that sort of the archetype of the lone wolf, they don't survive very long. There's a reason why teamwork makes the dream work, to be cliche. But and it's not a very healthy sort of mindset. Most villains are born out of isolation, are born out of being disengaged from society. There's the whole African proverb that if a child is not treated with love, they will burn the whole village down to feel its warmth, because isolation is what creates this absence of love. And it's what creates a person that doesn't really work well. And being anti-society doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't make you a person that's useful. It doesn't make you a person that is upstanding. You need a society in order to be considered upstanding. You need someone to help. That's why even in Christian theology, God says it's not good for the man to be alone. There needs to be community in order for there to be some sort of virtue, because virtues are not created in a vacuum. So that's, yeah, one of the things I loved about the movie is Jake, and Jake being stepping up and just being a great dad. There are so many good moments where we see him with his kids. You know, he's listening to them argue and he lets them argue. And when Loak and Kiri are arguing over a toy or whatever it was, but they were arguing and he's sort of watching them. And when it gets too far, when he sees that the kids aren't coming to a logical conclusion, when they aren't resolving it peacefully, when they aren't, when the conversation, well, not conversation, when the argument becomes so big that they're beginning to say things like, I hate you, that's when he steps in and he establishes a boundary that you can fight each other, you can have your little squabbles and everything. But once you begin to say things like, I hate you, which undermines the strength of the family unit, he steps in and says, this is the line you don't cross. And he says, hey, don't make me come over there. And I loved that because I was like, yes, please, Jake, like, get in there and discipline your kids. And he doesn't do it by like attacking them physically. He just establishes that this is the point you don't cross. Like you can argue, but you don't hate family. You don't destroy the family unit by verbally abusing it. And that's the point where he steps in. So I think that was like a great little moment that sort of establishes that um Jake is operating in his masculinity, to use a very cliche YouTube term. But as we've talked about several times on this channel, masculinity sort of governs the realm of order. And so when you have Jake being the one to establish the boundaries, that shows that he is actively engaging with his family and actively showing them what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Even in small things like this, we see Jake teaching his teaching the Taeum to fish. And that's the moment that we actually go back to when the Taeum dies in the end. That's the point of reflection, because we see this small intimate moment with him. We see that it's not only a father teaching his child how to survive, it's a bonding moment. And that's why we go back to it. And when and it's not that the two parents at the end go back to different points. When Natiri is also connecting with her son in the afterlife, she doesn't go to a different moment than Jake. She comes to the same moment where she's watching the father and son bond. And she's proud of that moment. And it's special to her. Watching her husband bond with her firstborn child is a special enough moment to her that both parents come back to the same point. And I think that was so profound in the movie, and it was done so well. And that's what makes this movie stand out so much. It's not its writing, it's not its dialogue, definitely not the dialogue. And it's not even the stunning visuals, which were great, but it's the family relationship. So Didi says the truth is you get outside the Hollywood press and social media bubble, you see a lot of different things. I definitely agree. I think that social media is great in a lot of ways. am personally a great and very big advocate for social media. It allows me to connect with friends who I would have lost contact with a long time ago if social media doesn't exist. It's allowed me to form great relationships. I have great relationships with people here and with people outside of my YouTube channel. Um, but it also keeps people in a bubble and it makes people believe that what's happening online is real life. And you have to be able to distinguish between what's real and what appears to be real, which is what social media is. So you do have to do a lot more work when you're online, and people don't really want to do that. And that's what makes social media as toxic as it is, because it's so easy to get away with not doing the right thing. And so people can say things that aren't true. People can spread information that isn't real. People can galvanize large crowds into saying things that they don't actually believe, and so it feels like everyone has this sentiment. So it's it is what it is. Um, I believe Callum says, I believe I've read that isolation proverb before. A commentator used that to describe um Joan Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. Putting people in isolation can sometimes do strange things to them. Say for children not interaction not say for children not interacted with enough when they were okay, I see what you did there. Same for young children who were not interacted with when they were young. You can spell and you're not dumb, but we all make mistakes, especially when we're in a hurry to type. So you're not dumb, DD. Um, I agree with obviously I agree with that because when it comes to this whole issue, and this is something I want to touch on like briefly before we go on. When it comes to the whole men going their own way or women saying that we don't want to engage with men are trash, that whole subject matter, because it's very volatile, and I always try to understand where people are coming from. Some people have legitimate reasons for why they have those sentiments, and it's not something to be ignored. I personally believe that, yeah, facts and truth are very important, but Jesus Christ came with grace. I don't have to scream the truth in your face. I don't have to condemn you or judge you. I can try to understand where you're coming from, and I think that's what's missing from a lot of conversations. So people have legitimate reasons for why they feel like society isn't worth it. And I understand that. I understand that it's difficult sometimes, but just because you have a legitimate reason does not necessarily make your perspective true, right, and true for all times and all cultures. So, but what is true is that when people disengage with community, they're worse off. That's just the facts. So when we say that we don't need it, we don't need another person, we don't need people in our lives, we don't tend to understand what it is actually that we're saying, because we think of life in that exact moment. We're like, I don't need anybody because I'm in the peak of my life. I'm in my early 30s or early 20s. I don't need anybody. I can look after myself. Life is great. But what about when you're 60? What about when you're 70? What about if your health fails? What about if you have a bad day? What about if you lose your job? What if life changes? What if you have an accident? What if we don't think about the what ifs? And so we act like life will always remain this way. We act like when we wake up in the morning, we'll always be able to stretch without pulling a hamstring. But as you get older, you stretch and it feels like your back gave out. So you have to think about what it would actually mean at 80 to not have anyone. But because we don't think of that, we act like community is disposable. We act like society is something we can throw away, not realizing that we need society. We need people. We need community. And so when men and women decide to disregard community or disregard society, what happens is that at first they disengage with people, but then eventually what happens is that they also disengage with themselves. They start to lose drive. They no longer want to do anything past survival and the bare minimum. And so that's where you have people start to live in ways that were like, how can a human live like this? But that's because they become disengaged. You see people living in apartments, and the apartment looks like it could grow fungus to start a zombie apocalypse. Like, because they no longer do anything that's past survival. We think that, why do you think there's the stereotype of the bachelor pad being notoriously dirty? Because once you start to disengage with society, and it doesn't mean you go and live in the woods by yourself somewhere. That's not necessarily what disengaging with society means. It means you begin to shut people out. You begin to shut meaningful relationships out. You can still have flings or whatever else, but when you stop having meaningful relationships, you are disengaging with society. And suddenly you find that you may have material things, but they don't mean anything. You don't have anyone when you have bad days. You don't have anyone when times are hard. You don't even have anyone when times are good. So you can't share your successes with anyone. And you find that's why you're on social media all the time, because you're looking for people to socialize with. But these aren't meaningful relationships. And so what I think made Avatar, The Way of Water, so emotional was that we saw a family connection that worked. And a lot of people long for that. A lot of people long for meaningful connection, for meaningful partnerships, for meaningful relationships, not just romantic relationships, but relationships with parents, relationships with siblings. A lot of people do not have that. And so, what this film sort of showcased was a relationship that worked. We saw the siblings quarrel, but ultimately, when it mattered, they came together. They said hurtful things to each other a lot of the time. But when it truly mattered, they were there for each other, even at the cost of Natalem's life. So, it, a lot of the messaging around family in the movie was so positive. And despite all its other flaws, this is why some people love this movie. Not for its writing, not for its visuals, but for the family. So that's just a very long-winded point that I wanted to make and sort of link it back to my experience of the movie. Okay, let's go to the comments because there's a lot. Callum says, if you hate your brother, you've already committed murder in your heart. Our Lord and Savior, you're quoting Matthew 5:22. TD says, social media always has a very slanted perspective on things. It's led by who is loudest, and it's never representative of much. That's so true. And I was even having a discussion about this today, that sometimes on social media it feels like everyone has the same opinion, but really it's just a bunch of loud mouths talking, and people sort of go along with it. Also because on when you say something on social media, not so much anymore, but before, when you said something on social media, it didn't really come back to you. You could say it, and you just said the most egregious thing, and it didn't really matter because it was online, and that wasn't real life. It's only really like in the last 5 years that if you say something online, it actually has a consequence in the real world. So what you find with social media is just a bunch of loudmouths talking, and no one actually, people don't really get behind the ideology, but because it's loud, because it feels like everyone is saying it, people start to believe that that's what everyone is saying, even though that's not the case. Even if you have 1,000 people on social media repeating the same thing, even if you have 100,000 people on social media repeating the exact same thing, remember there are almost 8 billion people on Earth. You are looking at a very small percentage of people who actually agree with one sentiment. Okay. Okay, so what does DD mean? That I because I can't think of okay, double ducks dips. I don't think that's what it means. Okay, du- dumb dumb. Tell me that's not what it stands for. Tell me that's not what it stands for. It does not stand for dumb dumb. I'm not gonna move on until you tell me what it means. I'm gonna wait here and we'll have another hour of silence because I refuse to believe that it means dumb dumb. The problem is way too many major institutions pay attention to social media. I won't answer that question. I won't comment on it until I know you're on it. Or until I know that it doesn't stand for dum dum. You don't have to tell me you're on it because this is a public live stream. But you have to confirm that your name isn't dum dum. Like you have to confirm that at the very least. My true name is closely guarded. Secret is a closely guarded secret protected by a sect of closely guarded monks high atop the Caucasus Mountains. Okay. Okay, just confirm that it doesn't stand for dum dum and then we can move on and I can comment on the comment that you made. I mean, I can sit in silence because it actually works out for me. I get to like relax my vocal cords and hydrate while I give this pause, so it's up to you. Okay, I repeat, my first name starts with D and just started using that of variants as a pseudonym. Okay, Daniel. Okay, Daniel, Danny, Damien, Damon, Daryl, Deshawn. I doubt you're a Deshawn. One of those is correct. No way! Daryl. Daryl? Damon? Damon? Daniel. Daniel. Are you a Christian? Are your parents Christian? Because if they are, it's definitely Daniel or David. They probably looked at you when you were born and were like, oh, our little David. That is a very hard question to answer, actually. It's definitely one of the biblical ones. It's Daniel or David. Is it Daryl? No, it can't be Daryl, but you are from Memphis. So Daryl. If you say it's Daryl, I could go scream. Daryl? Damon? It's not Daryl. Okay. Callum says, and so Malika sipped away for another few hours while Daniel David explained away. Oh, I can't breathe. This question shall gnaw like yourself for years to come. I bet it's Daniel. Do you know how many Daniels I know? I know a lot of Daniels. It's crazy. It's like everyone around me is a Daniel. So it has to be Daniel. Just make it like a perfect three. Because I've known Daniels in the past, but currently I know two Daniels, like personally, that are still in my life. So just become the third Daniel. You're the third Daniel. You're Daniel David. Deshaun. Or maybe I'm one of the two already there. Are you? I've someone tracked your YouTube. Daniel? I don't want to say your last name, but no, 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 no. You're not my Daniel. Karen says, and so Malika had to check the DNA files to find the definite Daniel David. Nah, you're not my Daniel. You're not. You're not. You're not. You're not. I'm 100% sure that you're actually not one of my Daniels. So, yeah. I've somehow hijacked your channel's lore just by having a dumb internet name. Um, Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think you guys should come to expect this from my channel because my channel is just a discussion. We're just people having a chat. So, and hopefully, the future of this channel is that I bring some of you up here if you want to appear and we just have conversations. I'm not serious. Like, as a content creator, I just want to have discussions. I think life should be fun. If you know anything about me, like in terms of like my friends, what they know about me, my main motivation, aside from following Christ, is having fun. So so in that terms, I love having conversations. Double A says my cat just scratched me. Ah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I hope that you are not too hurt by your cat, double A. But that's actually hilarious, and thank you for that laugh. I've actually had so much fun on this live stream, guys. You guys I'm so grateful to you because you do make my evenings very fun. So yeah. Callum says, and so Dee and Malika Wright engaged in an epic battle of wits to see who will reveal whose personal details first. Whoever loses will hopefully not die in the process. Dee says it's like Rumpelstiltskin. It really is. But I do know one thing. I do know that you are not my Daniel. So you're definitely going to be like a third Daniel. You're a Daniel David until further notice. So Daniel David, and that's what I'm going to say every single time I see your name pop up. You're Daniel David until you reveal otherwise. It could be Damon. That was D Daniel D David. Now, why do you sound Nigerian? D Daniel D David. Oh gosh, that has made me laugh. D Daniel D David. Ah, wow. And Double A's cat got in on the action to reclaim the throne of the internet for kitties everywhere. Mm. Double A says, Malika, I've got a restaurant's worth of dishes to do now, which is just great. Okay. My voice will keep you entertained while you wash the dishes. Was it you last time that was also watching the dishes and I had to stay on the show for so long? Honestly, you guys have actually become like my extended family at this point. This is making me talk until you finish your chores. Yes, it was you. Okay. Daniel David says there's a lot of other D names, including female ones. You forgot that possibility. I doubt you're a woman, but if you turn out to be, then that's also very interesting. But you know that I would just literally say that your name is Daniela, if that's the case. Callum says, so Didi successfully turned Malika into Jamaican. It's actually a Nigerian accent that I was going for, but Jamaican is funny. Double A says, yes, it was me. Of course it was. The notorious dishes. Daniela David says, I thought she was an alien. Um, no, I can actually confirm that I'm not an alien. Um, Danielle, Danielle Davy. Mm, Daniela Daniel. No, there has to be some kind of variation. We've gone completely off topic. It just hit me that we've gone completely off topic. You know, if I want to talk about serious issues, I will remind myself I won't do like a live stream. The live streams just have to be reserved for banter. Double A says you have cultivated a wonderful community here, Malika. Ah, thank you so much, guys. You guys, you guys make the community. You guys make this fun. And I just hope that you guys have as much fun as I do because I love laughing with you guys. It's special to me and I'm happy to be just back and talking to you guys about things that most people wouldn't care about, but you guys make it fun. So yeah. Callum says, and so Malika assumed Daniela may actually be a woman like Milan. Malika confessed she's not an alien despite claiming to think she was human before. Daniela David says, maybe I'm a hermaphrodite and go by Danielle David. I doubt you're a hermaphrodite because this would be a very interesting turn of events if you were. You're definitely going to be like Daniela David, and I'm gonna switch those names around until we learn the truth. Double A says you can call me by my real name, by the way. Great. Let's just go by real names. You know, you all know me as Malika. That is actually like my real name. Double A says my real name as in Aragorn. Are Callum and I the only ones who go by our actual names? And so Double A claimed to surrender his personal details in a battle of wits, says Callum. Yeah, I thought we were actually going on it. Daniela, David, Danielle says Damien, Danka, Doris, Dylan, Diego are more ones to throw. At this point, I'm just every time I have to say your name, I'm just gonna throw it in. Double A says, no, seriously, just call me by my real name if you know it. You guys are trolling at this point. Actually trolling. Double A. Okay. Anita. That's your name. Ananias. Okay, so we have Daniel, David, Danielle, and Ananias. There we go. She is Daniel, Daniela says she has spoken. Your name is Anita. Oh, this live show is actually a mess, but I love it. Daniela says it's like Adam and the animals. It really is. Mm. Ananias, that is your name. So while we're talking about names, let's go into Natiri and quickly talk about her in the movie because I love Natiri. Um, I think the relationship between Natiri and Jake definitely had a great balance because neither of them outshone the other. Natiri definitely played her role as a mother and as a wife well. We saw that she had a different sort of intimate relationship with Jake. They definitely understood each other. They knew each other's strengths. They had each other's backs. She, during that interaction, when they first get to the sort of water tribe area, we're gonna call them the water tribe. When they get to the water tribe, um, the interaction between the two women, she's definitely a powerful warrior, but she doesn't see herself as superior to Drake, even though she is the true born Navi, and whereas Jake is sort of just implanted into a Navi body. But she doesn't see herself as superior. She doesn't treat him as if he is lesser than. She's proud of him. She upholds him. She listens to him and goes along with his plans, even if she deeply disagrees. Jake has lost his family, but she loses everything. She loses her home, and she also ends up losing a child at the end. She loses the bow that her father gave to her. She loses her position. So she loses a lot, and we haven't seen her go through that, the whole trauma of losing everything in this in the movie. The song that she sings, the song called Song, is one of the best, uh and the actual actress sings that song, which is just makes it even more personal. So she's a very complicated character, and she's a very well written character in terms of how she embodies what it means to be feminine, but also very strong and proactive. She isn't docile. She doesn't sit around. I made a whole movie. No, I didn't make a movie, but I made a whole video about the Proverbs 31 woman. That proverb is from the Bible. So I made a video about it on my channel. It's there if you guys want to watch it. But it was basically talking about what the Bible describes as the perfect woman. And Itiri definitely hits that benchmark several times. She's somebody who caters for her family. She's strong. She's proactive. She's not lazy. She caters to everyone. She is a leader amongst the people that she is with. And her husband is praised because of her strength. She's not somebody who sort of shies away in the shadows and doesn't think for herself, but she recognizes Jake's headship. So there's definitely a lot to Natiri that fits perfectly the feminine mold, but is realistic. She's not like a Disney princess waiting to be saved and just soft and has little to no brain for herself. She is a person in her own right, and she is a strong person in her own right, but she fits the feminine mold perfectly, and it's a mold that works in real life and not just within the confines of a story. Because if you have a wife, for example, and you have to go out and work, especially in this modern age where both parties have to go out and work, you still want somebody who you can rely on. You still want a teammate. You still want someone who's strong, who can handle life's pressures and is not waiting for you to save them. Because life is stressful enough as it is. As a man, your life is stressful as it is. So you want someone who's able to also handle pressure. You don't want like a soft flower that's going to wilt at the lightest bit of pressure. Someone that you literally have to save from everything, even though it may make you feel good in the short term to be like a savior. But as you travel through life together and have to live real life as adults, you want someone competent. And so definitely, Neytiri is like a competent partner for Jake. He's leading a rebellion, like a war front, and she is right there, sort of with him. She sort of balances him out. She reminds him that, look, your family and your warriors are two different things. Your sons are training to be warriors, but you need to be able to separate between Commander Jake and Dad Jake. So that's something that I loved about her role, because the feminine, what is the role of the feminine? The feminine is to ensure that life can flourish. That while the man ensures that the children or the environment, the children are prepared for life outside of the safety net, the woman also has to be proactive in that as well and ensure that life can flourish within that safety net, and that these children are strong enough to survive outside as well and take that training. So she definitely does that. She definitely keeps that balance, and it's perfect. Honestly, the parents in this, In the soundtrack, one of the scores is called Bad Parents. And it's not like bad parents as if they were awful parents, but it's the music that accompanies the parents going to get revenge for Taeyam's death. And it's gorgeous because that scene was breathtaking. Natiri in warrior mode, and I love that Jake sort of turns to her and says, I need you right now. I need you to be strong. We need to go and sort out this man for taking our baby right now. And she gets into gear. That's a competent partner. That's who you want to do life with. You don't want someone who is just able to cope with the good times. You need someone who's on the ball when the times are hard because real life is not like a movie. Real life is not like a film or story. Real life has difficult situations and you want competent people around you. You don't want softies, you don't want people that you have to like shelter from everything. You want someone who, when you have children or when you have dependents, you want someone who is able to shelter them with you. So, and who is also able to affirm your leadership as a man. So that is done perfectly in the story. So yeah, let's go to the comments because I see that more have returned. Callum says, "You fools! My full name is Callan McLean McRitchie. My middle name is not this publicly well known. Most people are so ungrateful for their personal details, but not you, not anymore." Daniela says, "The whole body transplant thing raises a lot of questions, honestly. Take a look at the wife of Martin Luther." So, um, Ananias, or double A, but his name is Ananias, says, "Have you ever seen Pulp Fiction?" And now he comes to protest. Ananias says, "I'm Aragon, son of Arathorn, son of Ripthorn, son of Jason Bourne, son." I can't do this. Okay. Okay. Ananias says, "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, son of Ripthorn, son of Jason Bourne, son of a can of sweet corn." I got through it. I said it. I know you're not. You're Ananias. Okay. Callum says, "Ananias, how does a can of sweet corn procreate?" That's what we all need to know, actually. Ananias, how does um a can of sweet corn procreate? How does it achieve that? Callum also says, "Remember when she said, 'I will cut'? No hard feelings to Spider. The Tiri still cares." Yeah, that scene was hard because I honestly felt that Natiri was sort of very much like the actress was sort of imagining her own kids being taken from her, and so the anger, the rage, the sheer amount of emotions were definitely very palpable and could be felt through the screen. I was just transfixed by that scene because Spider was terrified. Like he saw Natiri and he was like, "Yeah, I have to hide because she will kill me." And I do think that she would have killed Spider if she if she had like an opportunity. Because remember, her main priority was to get her girls. It was not to take revenge through Spider. But she was very willing to kill Spider. And Natiri has made no she's never been deceitful about her feelings. She doesn't like him because he's human. He's visibly human. And we're told that in the beginning to Natiri, he would always be one of them. she's not going to look at him as anything else. And that's the point I was making to Lobster in the first place when I said that Neytiri wasn't painted as a saint. Neytiri has her prejudices. She gets angry. She's matured definitely in the second movie. She's not as like hot tempered and quick to hit as she was in the first one, but she's still a flawed human being. She's also a mother. Other kids are not her priority. And she's willing, the very fact that she's willing to, as a mother, she's willing to put a child that grew up with her kids to the sword in front of her kids. Look, Interior was not playing. Okay, so not double A, your name is Ananias. And Ananias says, my love life is like a film, not real. I'm so sorry. Oh gosh, Ananias. Poor Ananias. Callum says Pulp Fiction is overrated. Never watched it. Always seen it around. Never watched it. Daniela David says double A by any other name would amuse just as much. Ananias says, where art thou? Ananias. Callum says, why did you just call into a human being? Must have been similar to how Kirk describes Spock. Daniela says, oh, that neck scratch. Well, well. And Ananias says, tell me how Pulp Fiction is overrated, Callum. Yeah, Callum, tell us how Pulp Fiction is overrated. I haven't watched it, so enlighten me. And Ananias says, your laugh reminds me of my auntie. Wow. Are you calling me? I can't even say that. Wow. You're calling me an auntie. Okay. I see you, Ananias. Trying to start beef. Daniela says, I think we're flies buzzing around Monica's head by this point. Nah, not really. I'm actually enjoying this. This is very relaxed and yeah. I mean, I had points I wanted to make, but who cares about that? So Ananias says, you give off auntie vibes. I get that a lot. Oh my gosh. Okay, it's safe to reveal it now. I actually get called auntie a lot. A lot of people call me auntie, and I'm just like, yeah, yeah, it is what it is. I don't know what it is. I've tried everything to sort of just erase that vibe, but it's not erasing. So you know what? At this point, I own it. Yeah, I'm auntie. I'm Auntie Malika. Ananias says, how do you like the new YouTube banner? I know your name now. I know your name now. Your name is Adam. But I'm still gonna call you Ananias. Callum says, it's true it has an intriguing non-linear linear narrative, but apart from what could be in the suitcase, the film as a whole didn't have much to say thematically. Or is this about Pulp Fiction? Okay. I'll bear that in mind when I decide to watch it. Daniela David says you were born to be an aunt. um, I'll be sure to tell my siblings that. Yeah, that I was born to be an aunt, so they don't have any choice but to have kids. Yeah. I'll make sure to tell my siblings that I was since I was born to be an aunt. you don't have a choice. Like none of you get to be bachelors or bachelorettes. You just have to give me nephews and nieces. But thanks. I'm glad you agreed because I personally do think I was also born to be an aunt. Callum says Pulp Fiction is just a bunch of vulgar criminals interacting with other criminals. Maybe they should have made an intriguing. They could have made an intriguing series of short films. Wow, language. Um, maybe there could be more focus. Okay, I'll bear that in mind. And Ananias says, "Wow, you forgot my name. My heart is now more broken than AOS." I didn't forget your name. I just forgot that Adam was also double A. But now you're no longer double A because you're now triple A. You're Adam, Ahmed, and Ananias. So you have to change it to triple A. You're now. Is it triple A already taken? It's like a roadside. If you break down, I should know this because I have a license. But yeah, you're now triple A. You should change to triple A. Triple A says, "Who doesn't like vulgar criminals?" Come on. Okay. And Anai says, "I've only just started the dishes. I'll be standing here for 45 minutes now." Bro. I'm supposed to keep talking for 45 minutes? No, you guys are gonna have to entertain me for 45 minutes. That's the catch. So Daniela, um, please keep us entertained. 45 minutes, bro. Daniela says, Daniela says, "What's the deal with airplane food?" Oh wow, this chat is actually just amazing. So, and then I says, "Let's rag on Rings of Power." Daniela says, "I mean, it doesn't quite meet up to the standard expectations of food." That's actually quite true. Like, airplane food is notoriously bad in economy. When you take business class, airplane food gets significantly better. It's almost like they're trying to say something about the class system. Anyway, so, but let me just finish before we go on to possibly ragging about Rings of Power. I just wanted to comment a little bit on the sibling rivalry of The Way of Water. And that will probably be my last point on The Way of Water. And then we can just chat. So the sibling rivalry in The Way of Water, I think, is very interesting. Just because a lot of siblings have their disagreements. Siblings are not there initially for friendship, they are there for adversity. Siblings are how you realize that there is cruelty in the world. Siblings are how you realize that there is cruelty in the world. Siblings are how you engage with the fact that people who live with you are going to be against you. So your siblings teach you that life will be hard. And it will be hard not just because of things like natural disasters, entities like the government, it will be hard because of people. And some of the people will be very close to you. That's what siblings are there to teach you. Siblings are there to socialize you so that you understand that, hey, this life won't be an easy ride. And they're there to teach you certain things like the power of forgiveness. Because if you have to sleep in the same bedroom as your sister who just stole everything you loved and broke it, you're going to have to learn to forgive in order to sleep. So they definitely teach you things about life. but then they become your best friends because you grow out of that. And what we see is a kind of growth that comes over Loak as he navigates his relationship with his brother. What's sad is that he never gets to complete that process. Loak never gets to get onto the other side of being his brother's best friend. They do have great moments. They have great moments together. They stick up for each other. They have each other's backs, but they never get to mature in that relationship to the point where they are over the childish discourse, which is extremely sad, and it's part of the tragedy because we see how broken up Loak is over Neteo's death. Um, Daniela David says, I didn't ask to share a room with you. And Dan- Daniela David says, I don't entirely disagree. Yeah, of course you don't entirely disagree because you know that when you have siblings, they're there for adversity. So um but yeah, as we share life with our siblings, because with family you have to be quick to forgive in order to keep the peace in your home. For a good amount of time as you live with family, you have to sort of navigate peacemaking and negotiation and being diplomatic because you don't have the facilities to move out immediately, especially when your siblings are close in age and you're young. You can't survive outside, so you have to navigate living with people who annoy you and people who are close to you that you have extremely good times with and extremely bad times with. And in that way, it prepares you for future relationships with adults. Because let's say you're in a marriage, a committed relationship to somebody, you're going to have to use that experience of being diplomatic that you've previously used in a different sort of relationship with your siblings. Now, in an intimate relationship with a partner who knows everything about you, you're going to still use diplomacy to keep that relationship alive. Otherwise, you end up breaking up. So, living with family and having family relationships definitely teaches you certain skills that you will use in other situations in real life. And that's one of the reasons why family is definitely important. And it can be such a source of pain. And I'm looking forward to seeing how David Cameron, James Cameron, not the former prime minister, but James Cameron, the director. I'm looking forward to how he explores how Loic deals with the with the trauma of Daniela just said D. David Cameron. But I'm looking forward to seeing how James Cameron writes that character in such a way that he deals with the trauma and deals with that survivor's guilt in a way, because these are kids and they've seen horrific scenes of violence. But the positive thing is that they've been adopted into this tribe, so they don't have to be displaced again. Jake comes to the realization at the end that he can't run anymore from conflict, that he has to stand and fight. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how um the third movie pans out. And I'm actually excited because I'm now attached to the Sully family, like emotionally. So I want to see them have a happy ending, but I know that they're gonna have to fight for it. And so my anxiety is at the roof because they've already lost one sibling. Um, Daniela says Malika is here trying to make a point, and all I have to do is state a name that begins with D. I know, like you're not being helpful at all. You're just there, like distracting me. Callum says, you know what we should do? All of us here should form a an Daniela, stop it. All of us should form an Instagram chat group, and then we should do a live together so that I can call you all these names to your face. Daniela says this power is intoxicating. Stop it. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's you guys make me laugh a lot. So I that's the future of this channel, in case you guys didn't know. The future of this channel is just me like pulling up some of my subscribers, pulling up anyone who wants to jump on a chat, and then we just have a lengthy discussion about things that we love. Because at the end of the day, I think sometimes it helps to have a community. It helps to be able to have a laugh, and I can't lie, these live streams have given me an appetite for the laughter that you guys provide. So I want to take that to the next level. If you guys would be interested in that, it's definitely something that I want to do. Some of like my friends who are interested in similar topics, I'm going to bring them on and we're going to have long form conversations like this. I might put those on platforms like Patreon because I am quite a middle person. I like to take the middle road, but some of the people that I know, um, yeah, they like flagrant takes. So I don't know if YouTube will allow me to put their takes on here, but I'm creating a Patreon, so and it's gonna be like dirt cheap because I still want people to be able to access it. So it's gonna go on there. These very long and kind of fun conversations will probably go on there. Um, Ananias said, "Hi, I'm still here, just being a real man and washing the dishes, dreaming of getting a wife." Oh yes, Ananias, the hopeless romantic, who I'm never gonna let you live down that joke or that line that you wrote that my love life is like a film. It's not real. I will always bring that back. Every time I see your name, I will always bring that back. I just hope you know. Daniela David says, Instagram I ain't on, but I'm on Discord though. I'm on D Discord though. Stop it. Actually, there's a server for sci-fi fantasy podcast called The Legendarium. I'm in. I think maybe you'd get along well on. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. I'm gonna just note that down on my device, because that's what we have phones for. But going back to Analysis question. Daniela says, I'm D there if you ever join. Get out. Just get out. I'm D there if you join. This Daniela. Callum says, I'll need to find you on Discord. Oh, Daniela says, no, actually, D is my pseudonym there. Okay. Well, I'll let that slide then. I won't be in denial. Anyway, moving on. So, Ananias asked a question. I'm just trying to find it through the chat. And that, because we've actually come to the end of the live stream in terms of like the topics that I had to speak about. But Ananias and his dishes need some entertainment, so we're gonna talk until we hit the 45-minute mark, and then Ananias, your time is up. So let's see the question that he asked, and it was to do with. Malika, did you enjoy our Instagram discourse the other day? Yes, I actually did rather enjoy that discourse. We would talk for those who were not there, which is all of you. Um, we were talking about the Lord of the Rings, as I usually do, and we were having a conversation kind of about relationships in the Lord of the Rings. So we were talking and then I suggested that I should do videos on more romantic relationships in the Lord of the Rings. So that would mean Owen and Aragorn talking about their relationship, um, Eowyn and Faramir, their own relationship, and so Galadriel and Celeborn. I also think there's something to be said about the other relationships in the Lord of the Rings sort of universe. For example, one of my favorites is Nerdanor and Feanor. So yeah, Nerdanor and Feanor are definitely one of my favorite couples. They break up, which is well, they don't break up, they become estranged, which was really sad because I think they suited each other so well. But that's life. And Feanor became obsessive and they broke apart. But that's something I also wanted to say, I think, um, which is an important point about relationships in general. Auntie Malika is about to drop some wisdom. But one of the important things to remember is that no woman can constrain a man. I remember I was watching a video by Jordan Peterson, and I actually made a very similar video, and so I got directed to this video that he um, had made. That was a clip of one of his lectures, and it was to do with Beauty and the Beast. So, in Jordan Peterson's interpretation of Beauty and the Beast, as it pertains to human relationships, is that the woman or the feminine sort of acts as like a sort of calming agent on the masculine. So women tame this beast and this beastly man and civilize him and bring him into civilization, but they want you to sort of be a beast because women want a project. And I understand where he came from with that perspective, and it definitely seems that way, but that's a very crude version of a relationship, and it's not one that's going to work. That's what humans in their sort of fallen nature gravitate towards, but that's not what a functioning relationship requires. You don't A woman cannot tame a man. And what happens is that in Feanor and Nerdanel's relationship, they started off as like-minded, similar sort of passionate people. But then Feanor sort of transformed into this beast. And so what we see is Nerda will take this position of having to be beast tamer. And she couldn't do it. She got tired. And so their relationship failed and they became estranged. Women aren't supposed to take on other human beings as a project. Because imagine how that sounds. One half of the human species treats the other half of the human species like it's a beast that needs to be tamed, a pet dog that needs to be trained, and a project that needs to be completed. Sounds a little bit degrading. I mean, if I was a guy, I don't really think I'd want to be classified as a project. But and that's not how functioning relationships should come about. What comes about is that each person is governed by their ethos. And two like-minded people governed by an ethos that is similar, or the same actually, governed by the same ethos, come together in a harmonious relationship. That does not mean that they will not have quarrels. Human beings are not perfect. But it means that because they are governed by their ethos, when they want to be vindictive, when they want to act out of turn, it's not what the other person does that causes them to behave a certain way. It's their ethos that constrains them. And that's why even in the Bible we say do not be unequally yoked. That doesn't mean like don't be nice to people, but it just means that if you guys are not governed by the same ethos, then if you, an unbeliever, are just constrained by your own morality, when your morality fails, when it's not convenient, you give in. But if you're constrained by an ethos, you're not your actions do not depend on the other person's behavior. You're not being a good person because the other person is a good person. You're being a good person because your personal ethos requires that you be a good person. And that is what makes for a functioning relationship. Not the woman saying, hey, look at this project, look at this beast. He has the potential to be a very strong beast. If I can, and if I just civilize him, I can turn him into a perfect man. No, the woman has her ethos. The man is governed by his own ethos. And then they come together. And so when life gets difficult, as it undoubtedly will, they don't react. They don't make decisions based on the other person's actions. If this person fails, as they undoubtedly will, because they are human, if they act in a way that is displeasing to their partner, as they will definitely do because they're human beings and everybody has an off day, the other half or the other person in the partnership doesn't suddenly turn into a beast as a response to that. Their ethos constrains their actions, and they show grace and they show mercy, rather than saying, otherwise you guys start fighting each other and become estranged. Let's go to the comments. Callum says Malika will be haunted by her inner demon if this is to keep going. Nah, I think I'll farewell. Daniela says he became, well, Feanor. Touche. Um, Adam says hopefully Double A will get his dishes done delightfully. Double A says women want a project. Wow, that sounds like some Lady Macbeth talk. It really does, and it sounds quite sinister. And I don't know whether most people have the energy for a project, because I mean, projects, it requires a lot of energy, and I don't know if the person you want to do life with, I don't know whether you want to take them on as an additional thing. So it's not recommended for a healthy relationship. Yes, that's how carnal people live. Let's say people who are sort of ruled by their loins, that's how they behave. But humans are human in part because we are capable of rational thought, that we are not just guided by hormones and urges. So we can think. And when we are being rational, we know that, look, even though the aggressiveness is sort of like is is something associated with a strong male, but if we're rational, we know that this doesn't make for a consistent male that will cater for a family. That he needs to be constrained by his own ethos and not by me. And when we do that, we put pressure on the opposite party to be a certain way. That's when we get this false ideal, this false image of femininity, that the woman has to be soft and fragile and delicate, and the woman has to look a certain way, and her hair has to be like this, and she must always wear heels and this, because she has to incentivize the man to be a protector by being a damsel in distress. Meanwhile, we don't live in a medieval fantasy. We live in the real world. So you don't want a damsel in distress. You want someone who is competent. And so you have to be competent. And vice versa. You don't want a man who is always riding off into battle somewhere and leaving you with no protection. You don't want a man who is governed solely by his impulses, who cannot think, whose anger is unrestrained, whose affection is unrestrained. You want someone who is held accountable by his ethos, because that's someone who's going to make logical decisions that will lead to the betterment of everyone. So Ananias says, I'm on Discord too, by the way. I'll leave my tag once I've done the dishes. Callum says, I'd love to chat to you all on Discord or on Instagram. Where would we find each other on Discord and Instagram? Daniela David says, I don't really know much how it works. All things said, I mean, we could have a channel server or something. Honestly, um, you don't want Goku. Yes, you don't want Goku. I don't think most people look at Goku and go, yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, you don't want Goku. If we have to look at, let's say, I think Aragorn is a great, uh, yeah, father of the year. I get the sarcasm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Now you do want Piccolo. Yeah. So if we have to look at Aragorn from the Lord of the Rings as like the model of masculinity, his model works great as a sort of mythological fantasy brought to life in a way that we can see. So when we look at him, we don't really get to see Aragorn as a family man. We get to see him, we get glimpses of him in his interactions with the hobbits and small glimpses here and there, but he's part of a mythology. So bringing Aragorn out of his mythology into the modern man's daily life is a bit difficult. So that's one of the things I loved about Jake Sully in the second movie, The Way of Water, is because he's a very practical example for the modern man to follow. He's a very practical example. Sure, the modern man probably isn't leading an army or small rebellion against the government, though you never know these days. But probably the average guy is probably not doing that. But the average guy can be an involved father if he has kids. The average guy can choose a woman, like the right woman. The average guy can choose a competent partner. The average guy can be involved in the lives of his friends and facilitate healthy relationships. One of the things I loved about the movie is that it's not Natiri who goes to to Kiri and sort of tries to ask her what's the problem. It's actually Jake. Jake goes to her and says, "Okay, tell me what's the problem." Because she's been having this issue with hearing Awa. She thinks she's kind of going mad and she's coming across as a bit crazy. She's having a seizure and whatever. But it's Jake that sits next to her and goes, "Okay, what is the problem? Like, let's get through to this." He's attentive to his kids emotionally. If you look at the way he is with his girls, like he's wrapped around Turk's finger. So he's very attentive to his kids' needs emotionally, physically, in terms of like stability. He's a hands-on dad. And that is something the average guy can achieve. They're not asking you to lead an army into Mordor, but you can be an involved person, even if you're not a dad yet or don't have a relationship. You can be involved in the lives of your friends. You don't have to be the leader of the group, quote unquote, because um when Jake is in the Water Tribe area, he's not the chief. He's he's actually subordinate to the chief because he's now one of them, and he's even an outsider for the most part of the movie. He has to learn their ways. So he he's not in a position of leadership except over his own family. So he's very relatable in that sense. You can be involved in the lives of your friends. You can be involved in the lives of the people that you are related to and that you are in relationship with. So I think while Aragorn is a great sort of mythological example, Jake Sully is a brilliant, down to earth, practical example. Okay, so let's go to the comments. Daniela David says, I remember a line from Earl in Jim Henson's Dinosaurs, something along the lines of, no matter how low you are in life, if you have a family to go home to, they're lower. That's true. I mean, no matter how like difficult life gets, if you what makes life worth fighting for is people. If we look at the central sort of message of the Christian Bible, it's that which is the verse John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, so that whoever believes in him shall have eternal life and not perish. It's like God so loved the world. That is the love, community, relationship is this it's what makes life meaningful. It's what makes sacrifice meaningful. We sacrifice so that others may live, others may have a better life. Like even our parents, if we come from immigrant families or our parents even moved anywhere, they did that to give us a better life. They did that so that we can live better. They did that so that we can have opportunities that they didn't have. They went through certain struggles so we didn't have to do that. So sacrifices are made so that others can benefit. The role of the parent is often that they plant trees that they will not get to sit under. And so what's the point of planting the tree in the first place, even though you may reap some fruit, but the people who will thoroughly enjoy that are usually going to be the people that come after you. And so community is what makes life worth it. As Daniela, David, Daryl, Duncan says, legacy. Yep. Ananias says, Malaka, do you have Discord? I do not, but I will get one. Yes, I will. Um, Ananias says, Daniela, David, and Callum, if you guys give me your Discord tags, I'll make a server, and then when Malika joins, I'll transfer ownership to her. Oh, nice. I will. I will probably get that rolling. I'll probably find a way to do that and like in DM it to you so we can get that rolling. And I would love for this to become like something that we do maybe Saturday evening, because Sunday evening is going to be a bit tough because that's like the end of the week and then the new week begins and work begins. But yeah, definitely. So how are the dishes coming along, Ananias? Daniela, David, Duncan, Darrell says, I don't even know how Discord tags work, honestly. Me neither. I'm not the most tech savvy. And so Ananias says the dishes are greasier than my hair. Okay, but why is your hair greasy? Okay. Daryl, Daniela, David, Daniel says, now Malika, you could get one up and put a link in the main channel and I and the others could join from there. I may be down for that. Okay. And Anaya says, go on Discord and it should be your name and then a hashtag and a few numbers. All right. Okay, let's see if I can do that like now as we're talking. Let me just see if I can do that now. Discord login. Discord, your place to talk and hang out. Very interesting. And Anaya says, my hair is not greasy currently, but there we go. Even though I'm 20, my hormones still haven't calmed down. Yeah, they don't calm down for a while. Oh, Ananias says, I'll find you, Callum. Callum, you might want to run. Okay, so Daniel, Daniela, David Duncan says, I'm a tad nervous putting my tag in here on a public stream, which I assume will be posted again later. I may be over paranoid though. That's true. I mean, you can um you guys know my like my what's gonna call it? Uh that's how long this stream has been. I've forgotten basic English sentences. But you guys know my Instagram name. And so it's basically just MN Writes. Daniela, you can DM it to me and then I can send it privately rather than you putting it here on a public stream. So yeah. And that if you're worried about it being so public, I definitely respect that. Um yeah. And then I said, don't worry, Didi, once the server is created, Malika, will invite you. Daniela says, fear the AA. Yeah, we could do that. I love how we're just organizing stuff here, which is great. This is what makes it interesting and exciting. Ananias says, would you say 20 is peak fertility? Bro, what are you on? um peak fertility at 20? Um, I mean, I don't know. For a guy, I don't probably not. For a girl, again, probably not. So 20, is your frontal lobe even finished developing at 20? Like you're in no position to be fertile at 20. I mean, the body obviously does its own, prepares its own like ecosystem, whereas the brain is still catching up until you're about 25. But yeah, I'm not the person to ask. I'm really not the person to ask this question. I left science at GCSE. Like the moment I passed, I said, that's it. We're not going back. Except when we need to make a YouTube video and then we go back briefly. um, but yeah, we are making a Discord server with the community of this channel. Yep, look at progress, guys. Amazing. Okay. Okay, I'm on Discord. Imagine a place where you can belong to a school club, a gaming group, or a worldwide art community. Sounds fancy. Where you can just be you and a handful of friends can spend time together. A place that makes it easy. I can agree to the terms and conditions, and there we go. Yes, I am a human, even though on this chat we have sort of disagreed to that, and now I'm a suspected alien. But yes, for the purpose of this Discord question, I am human. Okay. Yeah, I'm registering for I'm registering for Discord now. I'm just saying names. I'm just here saying names that start with D. So, and then I says, when I said fertility, I meant libido. This is not a question I've ever thought about in my life. Um, is 20 the peak? I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. So let's get this Discord done. Day. Da, 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 da. Okay, Ananias. It says create your first Discord server. Your server is where you and your friends hang out. make yours and start talking. So they've given me a bunch. They've said create your own, or they've given me a bunch of templates: gaming, search, school club, study group, friends, artists and creators, or local community. Which one am I picking? Yes, I've made an account and it's just Malika Writes. Okay, I clicked create your own, and it's saying for club and community, for me and friends. Which one are we going for? Me and friends. Okay. Okay, so the server name is going to be the rights channel. It's not going to be the Fellowship of Malika Callum, because that's what Callum is put. But it's going to be the rights channel. The right channel. Fight for your Daniela said fight for your rights. Callum says the right channel or the Fellowship of Malika. No, it's going to be called the right channel. And guys, since you guys are here, you're going to be like the first to know this. But the channel name is changing. Yeah, yeah. Well, not this particular. And then I says the return of the right, but not this chat. Barrow. Daniela Davis Duncan says the Barrow White right. Oh no. No, no, we're not naming it the Barrow right. But Min is right. Oh my gosh. The rights. Okay, let's first of all find like a okay. I'm gonna make a quick thumbnail for. You can always change the name for so no pressure. It's gonna be called the Rights Channel because it's gonna link with a change that's coming to the Malika Rights channel. You guys are gonna be the first to know. But I'm going to create like another channel, which sounds strange. So Malika Writes, this channel that we're currently on, is going to stay. It's not like being deleted or anything, but there is going to be another channel being created called the Rights channel. And this is the channel that I'm going to put our discussions on. So things where I have other people, where we have long form conversations and things like that, it's going to go on that channel just because I don't want it to be centered around me. I want that one to be more of a discussion channel where my face isn't like the face of the channel. It's going to be more of a community thing. And so this Discord server is probably going to be like the origin story of that channel. But you guys are like the first to know about it because you guys are here. So feel privileged. And while we're still here, I'm actually just going to create a quick thumbnail on Pixar because I'm creative. And Daniela Duncan David says, we're pioneers, y'all. The American coming out in him. But you guys are. You guys are like pioneers. And Ananias says the origin story. Man, I love that phrase. Yep. Yep. Oh, Ananias, you didn't know that Daniela Duncan Darrell is American. Yeah. He's American. America, thank you. Okay, let's quickly just make like a because I'm gonna do 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 do. Yep. And Anais is British, just like me, born and bred here. Don't mind me. I'm literally just creating like a thumb. You guys can't see it because the light is so bright, but I'm creating like a little thumbnail for the what's it called for the Discord server. Since we're here and we're just kind of messing about, I'm gonna be doing this, and we're gonna be accompanying Ananias in his dishes. So Ananias asks, "What's the latest hour you stayed up studying?" The whole night. The whole night. I'm notorious for doing that. The whole night. I've stayed up till like 7 in the morning. So it's really not unusual for me to not sleep. And that's why makeup is necessary, especially like under eye stuff, because you can even still see the dark bags from here. And then I says for me it's 5 a.m. Yeah, I've pushed 7. All nights? Oh, because I sometimes do like all night prayer. So yeah, I'm used to not sleeping. Coffee definitely helps, but I promised my friend that I would be sensible with my coffee intake, and so I am actually determined to keep that promise. And then I asks, ever done an all-nighter before school? Definitely. Before a lecture, I had a 10 a.m. lecture and I hadn't slept. I hadn't slept and I couldn't sleep because this was the time that I'd stayed up till like 6. So I had to work out and then I had to get ready and then get on the train and get to uni. And I had a 10 a.m. lecture and I stayed up for the entire lecture. It was a 2-hour lecture in the morning. It was disgusting. But I definitely would not recommend repeating that, even though I did twice, but definitely would not recommend. Definitely manage your time better than I did. And then I says I did it once in year 11, not for an exam, just because I was partying Sunday night. The next day at school was just a normal day with no exam or anything. Yeah, boy, I could never. About for party, no, I don't like partying that much. I don't like partying that much. The only reason you will see me stay up is because something important needs to get done. I'm not going to, for who? For who am I staying up for? For what party? Yeah, but it was year 11, so we're gonna forgive you because what did we know in year 11? We didn't know a thing in year 11. So yeah, you can be forgiven of that egregious act. Da, 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 da. Alrighty, apply. Okay, I'm gonna send that to myself and then I says I've glowed up so much since year 11. Yeah, right. Yeah, right, Adonias. If you're gonna say that, we're going to need proof. Right, guys? Callum, Daniel, Daniela, Duncan, we're gonna need proof. You can't just say I glowed up. How do we know you're telling the truth? So we're gonna need proof. Is it just me? I for one think we need proof because I mean Daniela Daniel David Duncan said I demand electromagnetic charts of your glowing. Same. 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 How you can't just come here and say I glowed up. How do we know? Like, where's the electromagnetic charts of your glowing? I can say I glowed up. Look at how my face is literally glowing. Like the light is just reflecting off my face. I can prove I'm glowing. Like, look at it. There's actually shine all over my T zone. So yeah, you're gonna have to. Daniela David Duncan said, "I appreciate how much you're committing to those names." By the way, oh, you think this is a joke, but this is actually your name now. Every time I do a live stream, this is your new reality. I just hope that you're ready for it because I will never, every time I see your name come up, I will never go, oh, Didi said it will be Daniela, David, or one of them. That's just how it is now. You've pioneered this, you created this. And I'm going to pause for dramatic effect so that it sinks in how you've done this. Daniela says, you did this, you. Ananias says, Malika, you are 22, right? I mean, not for much longer, but yeah. Yep. Not for much longer, but yes, I am currently 22. I'm just sending this logo to myself so that we can get the ball rolling with the Discord. I've made like the ugliest thumbnail, but it's okay because it will have to do for now. Do 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 do. Okay. So I've created a Discord server called the Rights Channel. So Ananias, you can work your magic. Wow, it's saying customize your server with apps. Do I actually need any of these? Escape. Yeah, let's escape that. So the topic is literary discussions and random names because we can't reveal government names. Okay. Yep. So Daniela David Duncan Darrell says you can probably just put a temporary link or something here. Did you see a invite link anywhere? No. Let's see. No, I don't need to find a study group. Invite friends. Copy. Okay. I have an invite link. I've posted it. Wow, look how we got things done in one live stream. We've actually created something else. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, and that is done. So the link is in the server. That link apparently will expire in 7 days. I will probably change that setting another time later, or but yeah. Daniela, David, Duncan, Daryl says it is alive. Yes, it is alive. Ah, and Callum is here. Yes, it is alive. But yeah, we've made that server, and I'm actually really happy with the progress of today. But yeah, okay, Double A is gonna join once he's done with the dishes. So now can we talk about the Rings of Power, bruh? Ananias is 3 hours. It's actually 3 hours. We're gonna abandon you at the moment, and then you can join us on Discord. I've been talking with my voice for 3 hours, and you guys have made me laugh a lot, which is great. But also, I'm looking at the time, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that my house will not keep quiet for much longer. Oh, and now he sounds sad. Look at Ananias. I understand, guys. Don't let me keep you. Anyway, okay. We'll stay for like 5 more minutes while I sign off. But you can listen to me say bye. You know, guys, I take so long to say bye. Uh, Ananias says, but don't allow the gap between the streams to be so much next time. It wasn't my fault. Oh my gosh. I didn't want to stay away for that long, but I promise, I solemnly swear that I will try my very best to ensure that we do these live streams more often, and that I'm not kept away from you guys for so long. Oh, Ananias is done. He's wiping the sink. I'm done with the dishes. Look at this young man actually cleaning the sink after he's washed the dishes. Wow, we stand a king who can actually leave the sink clean. But yes, indeed. Daniela says progress. But I actually smiled so much that my cheeks are hurting, so I'm gonna like deadpan the rest of this exit just so that my face can relax. But thank you so much for watching. Daniela, stop it. Daniela, stop it. Uh, okay. Thank you so much for watching this live stream. You guys have been an absolute blast. It's a pleasure every time I come on here, and I always look forward to this. This is like the casual element of the channel, and it's the part that I enjoy the most, because making intellectual literary videos is great, and I love, looking at the comments and replying to them, but having this active discussion is my favorite part, and so I look forward to it a lot. I love that we've spontaneously made a Discord server, and I'm gonna advertise that so others can join as well. I'm so glad that we've gotten that done. But yeah, I'm actually really excited about what the future of this channel is. I have a lot of big plans for this channel moving forward, and just to make it a lot more fun, because that's like my primary incentive for this channel, is just to have fun with it. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone who participated. Thank you so much for listening to my very long-winded review of The Way of Water. It was partly long-winded because of you guys, but I'm gonna take one for the team and take the blame. Thank you so much and have a lovely evening. This has been the Malika Rights channel.